I'm not a mastermind, folks. It's actually the opposite when it comes to planning stuff out.
One of the most insane things I've witnessed live in my life was that time that Alex Jones and Roger Stone stormed the Young Turks set at the 2016 Republican National Convention. Alex Jones, always the showman, decided that he would interrupt their coverage. And well, I'm sure you remember what happened. Cenk blew a gasket after Alex whipped out a t-shirt with Bill Clinton's face on it.
It's Bill Clinton that says rape. Oh God, hide that immediately. That's the big no that Roger Stone's banned.
All right, you want to take my show over? I'll take your show over.
Go ahead.
Anna called Alex a mean name.
Get out of here, Alex.
We gotta continue.
Ironic, given who her boss is. And Jimmy Dore, being the lowlife that he is, spat water in Alex Jones's face. Within hours, it was the top video on the front page of YouTube. As of today, the video has over 2.3 million views. Appropriately enough, this exchange generated an image that perfectly summed up the 2016 presidential election. Like I said, I happened to be watching the Young Turks coverage of the convention at the time it all went down. The whole thing was surreal in its own right. But what was most surreal to me was that before this happened, Alex Jones and Cenk Uygur actually had a decent rapport. Cenk had gone on InfoWars in the past, and Alex had gone on the Young Turks back when they were on current TV. While these exchanges did get contentious at times, not surprising given the personalities involved, all things considered, they were relatively amicable. You can actually tell that when Alex first showed up on the set, Cenk, while being slightly peeved about being interrupted, is somewhat amused.
I'm gonna come sit in your lap.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
Hey, Alex Jones, how you
Good to see
doing?
you, man. You're looking sexy.
All right.
Hey, how's the revolution going? You guys starting the revolution?
We are indeed, Alex. The revolution is afoot. Welcome to the Young Turks.
You overthrow America tonight?
I am going to restore American democracy along with progressives and conservatives in this country.
And then things deteriorated. And over the years, they continued to deteriorate. In fact, in 2019, Alex Jones actually sued the Young Turks for defamation. I am honestly amazed that I didn't hear about this earlier. I'm someone who is very online, and of course, I follow the Young Turks quite closely. But this was still news to me when Cenk said this a little over a week ago. Amazingly, I wasn't the only one who hadn't heard about this.
Yeah, I didn't know about that story, Cenk. I didn't know that he had pursued a lawsuit against us.
Yeah.
Breaking news for me, and I love it. It's amazing.
So what exactly were the grounds for this lawsuit? Well, as I'm sure you know, Alex Jones is currently a defendant in a defamation lawsuit himself. The parents of the children who were killed in the Sandy Hook school shooting are suing Alex Jones because Jones allegedly called the 2012 shooting a hoax and allegedly accused the parents of being crisis actors. In the spring of 2019, the attorneys representing the Sandy Hook parents in this defamation case requested that Jones send over certain files in the discovery process of the lawsuit. When the lawyers started to parse through the files, they discovered something very illegal and very immoral. Child pornography. As NBC News reported, consultants working with the lawyers discovered the images in the documents that were requested during the court hearing in April, the filing states. A lawyer representing the families immediately alerted the FBI, according to the filing. How did Alex Jones defend himself here? Jones did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Monday, but InfoWars has described the emails as a malware attack attempting to embed CP on Jones's servers. As is almost always the case with Alex Jones, his explanation was that it was a conspiracy orchestrated to take him down. He later went on air offering $1 million to someone who could find out who was behind all of this.
You're trying to set me up with child porn. I'm gonna get you $1 million. $1 million, you little gang member. $1 million to put your head on a pike. $1 million, bitch. I'm gonna get your. You understand me now? You're not gonna ever defeat Texas, you sacks of. So you get ready for that.
Maybe it was all a plot against him. I have no idea. On June 17th, 2019, the Young Turks reported on the story. They also tweeted out the YouTube upload from their main Twitter account. The video has since been taken down. It looks as though it was removed from their YouTube page right around the time that Jones filed the lawsuit. Either way, the show from the day which it was clipped out of is still on the Young Turks website, and I was able to screen record it from there. The entire segment is over 10 minutes, so obviously I'm not going to play the whole thing here, but I'll share some of the choice bits with you.
And his lawyer came out with a statement arguing that Jones was the victim of malware, that it wasn't his child pornography.
I know.
I mean, we've all been victims of malware. And let me just tell you, that doesn't somehow magically put child pornography onto our computers or our hard drives.
Who has to clarify, I don't like having sex with children? I mean, again, it makes it seem like it's a legitimate option. Yeah, look, I just don't like eating broccoli. Everybody knows I don't like eating broccoli. Hey, this is not helping your case. If I'm those federal prosecutors, I don't want to know where it came from. Did it come from the attorneys? Did it come from Alex Jones? Here's where it didn't come from, outer space. Okay, and it's not the forces of Satan. That's not where it came from. It came from a computer. Whose computer did it come from? I think they should pursue those charges.
Needless to say, Cenk and Anna were rather skeptical of Alex Jones's defense. So what ended up happening here? Well, as far as the actual content of the investigation into Jones goes, it seems as though there's no evidence that Jones himself, his lawyers, or InfoWars were the ones who sent the CP to the Sandy Hook parents' legal representatives. Back in June of 2019, InfoWars posted a video of Jones with his attorney, Norm Pattis, saying that they fully cooperated with the FBI and that the intelligence agency had fully exonerated them.
And the FBI has been very clear. They have said that I am the victim, and there'll be more of that information coming out in the next week, and then InfoWars is the victim of this. But here's what I'm saying. Whoever sent this, for whatever reason, this shows the escalation and the insanity of all of this.
This video was also weirdly taken down from their website, but using the Wayback Machine, I was able to recover the video. I'm usually not the type to take Alex Jones at his word, but it looks as though, at the very least, the FBI didn't find evidence that the CP was linked to him or his company. As Jones's legal team said in a court filing, importantly, the FBI concludes that the emails were archived and were found to have never been opened by any member of Infowars.com. No one at Infowars had any knowledge of the content. Jones was the intended victim. CP is very illegal and very immoral, and people who are discovered with it tend to wind up in prison. I cannot say if this was indeed a malware attack, but given all that I've seen, I seriously doubt that Jones himself was the owner of the CP. So after his likely exoneration, in September of 2019, Jones filed his lawsuit against the Young Turks LLC, along with then congressional candidate Brianna Wu, who we'll come back to later, and television producer Andrew Kimmel. Jones's legal team alleged in the court filing that after the Sandy Hook suit was brought, hackers and cybercriminals ideologically aligned with the defendants tried to plant CP on computers of Jones's employer during a time period designed to be unwittingly discovered by a lawyer involved in the case, by using terms in the emails that had been ordered produced in court-ordered discovery. Once discovered, the FBI cleared Jones and his employer, and Jones was the identified target victim. Defendants instead told the world it was Jones who sent the CP to the victims of the school shootings. Jones, publicly and through counsel, continually requested corrections from the offenders. The defendants refused. This was libel. So what came of this lawsuit? Well, according to Cenk Uygur, it was withdrawn voluntarily by Jones's legal team within a week.
They withdrew the suit within a week because they're serial bunglers. They're morons and lunatics.
According to courtlistener.com, it was actually withdrawn at the end of November 2019, 2 months after it was originally filed. The timeline seems relatively unimportant to me in this instance, but still leaves a question as to why Jones withdrew the lawsuit. This is how Cenk Uygur explained it.
When he went to sue us for defamation, it was a monumental error. Not only because, of course, we didn't defame him, we just stated facts that were true, but the plaintiff's lawyers that were representing the family said, if Alex Jones' suit against the Young Turks and Cenk are true, then we definitely win our case. What he did was not the same, it was way worse than what he is alleging the Young Turks did to him.
From what I've seen, this actually seems to be true. Jones's defense of his statements about the Sandy Hook shooting is that he didn't doubt the events themselves. He was merely stating the position of those who did in such a way to inform people that this perspective exists. Not that he necessarily held that position himself.
You realize now, you were mocking the difficult emotional reactions of people who provably lost their children.
No, I was not mocking. I was showing what people were questioning. It was not to mock the parents. It was showing why people were questioning. It's you that is projecting mocking onto it. I was showing what he did.
This is more or less what the Young Turks did in their video that they've since taken down. They mostly just reported the claim being made by the Sandy Hook legal team, and they even represented the perspective of Jones's lawyers.
But the story is that the lawyers for the Sandy Hook victims received child pornography among the files that they had requested from Alex Jones, which indicates that Alex Jones had child pornography in his possession.
So now his lawyer claims, and we're fair here, we'll give all sides. His lawyer claims, no, the federal prosecutors looked at that and they said that neither Jones nor his attorneys knowingly possessed the porn. But that's his lawyer saying that. Federal prosecutors didn't say that. So the federal prosecutors have yet to clarify. They might back that up or they might disagree. But would I take Alex Jones' lawyer's word for it? No, but I'm being fair and telling you what the lawyer said, okay?
Their own editorializing on the issue was basically saying that the whole thing was rather weird, which, to be fair, it is. Malware attacks of this sort don't happen that often, and we should all be glad for that. At no point did they say that Jones sent or possessed the CP himself. They merely stated that he was accused of this. All of their language is appropriately hedged. You might think that's a Weasley loophole, something that isn't foreign to the Young Turks, as we'll see, but that isn't legally liable at this point. So that was the time that Alex Jones sued the Young Turks. The whole thing only lasted a couple of months, and nothing really came of it. So why bother even talking about it? Other than it's salacious and hopefully generate some clicks, of course. Well, I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about what I think is the most egregious thing the Young Turks do, which is the way they avoid campaign finance laws. If you take another look at that lawsuit, you'll see that Jones sued 2 individuals and 1 company. Obviously, the company that got sued was the Young Turks LLC. LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. As of now, I believe the Young Turks are a straight-up corporation. But that's unimportant for today's purposes, because limited liability companies and traditional corporations share something in common. That is, their responsibility when it comes to liability. For example, if someone wins a lawsuit against a corporation or an LLC, the people who work at the company don't actually have to pay out the damages. The legal entity that is the corporation or the LLC is on the hook. This is one of the biggest advantages of incorporating. A great example of this was when Nick Sandman of Covington Catholic School sued various news companies for erroneous coverage of the 2019 Lincoln Memorial incident. Sandman eventually settled out of court with the various news organizations he sued. It wasn't Jake Tapper or Don Lemon or any other anchor at CNN who had to pay the settlement. It was Warner Brothers, the company that owns CNN. So, even though it was Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian who allegedly defamed Alex Jones, they were not personally liable because they broadcast these things using company property. Jones complained about the wide reach of the Young Turks due to their high subscriber count and all the rest. As Jones's legal team wrote, the Young Turks have almost 400,000 Twitter followers and hold themselves out as serious journalists, with millions of followers across multiple social media platforms, and the biggest media network on YouTube that is completely monetized by YouTube without censorship of any kind, and promoted by YouTube as recommended video links to those who watch news videos from major news networks. The YouTube channel and broader network Jones mentioned is the property of the company, not Cenk and Anna themselves, though I assume they're both shareholders. We don't know because TYT is not publicly traded. Compare this to Brianna Wu and Andrew Kimball, the other defendants in the lawsuit. They were personally sued because they allegedly defamed Jones over their personal Twitter accounts. If Jones had won the case, they would personally have to pony up the funds, whereas he would only ever be able to go after the assets that belong to the Young Turks company, not Cenk and Anna themselves. Why am I bothering to talk about liability here? Who cares? Well, the Young Turks have benefited from incorporation in this regard. This wasn't the first time they were sued. Former employees Jordan Sheraton and Andrew Jones, no relations to Alex, brought forth lawsuits for different reasons. And if we're being realistic, this probably won't be the last time TYT gets sued for defamation. As I understand, news media companies face defamation lawsuits fairly regularly. It kinda comes with the territory. So incorporating makes sense given their business model and the nature of the news world. Unfortunately for TYT, incorporating also places limitations on what you're allowed to do insofar as electoral politics go. Specifically, according to FEC regulations, you're not allowed to coordinate with candidates. Corporations can endorse candidates, and they can work with candidates to roll out said endorsement, but past that, any participation in the election of said candidate has to be made entirely without any coordination. Coordination between a corporation and a candidate can result in an illegal in-kind contribution from one to another. The Young Turks bemoan this system. They constantly talk about how it contributes to corruption and how the laws enforcing it are a complete joke. On that last point, they're completely right, as they themselves have demonstrated repeatedly. Cenk Uygur has involved himself in electoral politics for a while now. I'm sure we all remember when he ran for Congress himself, but it goes a lot deeper than that. The Young Turks are constantly supporting progressive candidates by granting them puffy interviews and spots on their panels, which are effectively just advertisements for them, and telling their audience to donate to their campaigns and vote for them. One of the candidates they fully supported was actually Brianna Wu. She's probably best known as one of the feminists in the Gamergate controversy, but she actually ran for Congress in Massachusetts in 2018 and 2020, and she did so with the Young Turks' full support. After she dropped out in 2020 due to COVID-19, she was actually given a job as the head of Rebellion PAC, a political action committee that was started by Cenk Uygur, that he fundraises for on the Young Turks, and that he uses to back candidates TYT likes.
So Brianna was known for a couple of fronts. She ran for Congress, but she also, well, honestly, was one of the biggest targets of Gamergate. And she is unbowed. Okay, that's how we roll. We hit back, and the rebellion hits back. So Brianna is fantastic. She's been wonderful at organizing this, and she's our fearless leader, literally. And Brianna and I together in our congressional campaigns have raised over $2 million. Here on the Young Turks, you guys helped to raise $2.5 million in 2018 for just Democratic candidates. So watch out if the rebellion's in your race.
It's a part of Cenk's wildly unsuccessful political machine. Every time Cenk and his co-hosts involve themselves directly in electoral politics on their show, they say that it's just them acting independently of their role on the show.
All right, and I would like to end by saying that TYT as a company does not do a company-wide endorsement. We have a team of reporters who will remain objective. And when it comes to hosts who share opinion, they're free to share their endorsements of various candidates, including candidates like Cenk Uygur.
They just happen to be using company resources while doing it. The most egregious example of this was when Cenk was running for Congress. They would bring him on as a guest to his own show and conduct faux interviews with him, which were effectively just advertisements.
Welcome, Anna. Thank you.
I'm welcoming you.
That's right.
He's a guest on this show.
This is something they later admitted they only did because they were trying to get around campaign finance laws.
Like, this is not like one of those cheesy, like, here with us now is congressional candidate for California's 25th district, Cenk Uygur. Thank you for joining us, Cenk.
Why, are you saying we did that before?
Yeah, because we had to legally. But anyway. Yeah.
Like I said earlier, they're doing electioneering with the company's property. The YouTube channel, the network, and all that comes with it. The wide reach the company has is why Alex Jones sued the company. It wouldn't have made sense to sue Cenk and Anna individually because everything they were doing was with company resources. And they use these same company resources, and all that comes with it, to participate in elections. Except they get around the illegality of that through technicalities. They're perfectly happy to use corporate laws for protection when it suits their purposes, only to abuse those same laws when it's convenient for them to do so.